what we need to do with our lives when we feel like we are banging our head against the wall and nothing is working out, when we feel like we're doing everything we know to do and yet nothing is working out. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to tell you up front. People have told me and given me feedback in the past that I could probably find a nicer way to say something. I did some really successful training with a very, very, an amazing group of speakers. And I was like, stop lying to yourself. And they were like, I really wish you wouldn't say it that way. And I'm like, yeah, but we need to stop lying to ourselves, because when I say it a different way, you can just keep lying to yourself. Okay. So I am acknowledging right now in front of you, my friends, my internet friends, and my podcast friends, that I know that what I'm about to say is probably going to hurt some feelings and step on some toes. Okay. But see, you didn't come to my channel to be coddled and ego stroked and it's okay, baby. They just don't appreciate you. You didn't come to me for that. You can go to somebody else for that. What you came to me for is for me to help you succeed. And what you came to me for is for me to say, I've analyzed the situation and here are the things you need to do to fix it better. Now, there's always another way. There's always alternative ways. There's always additional ways to get things done. But if you do what I'm telling you to do, you're going to bust through your dry spell. You do the things that I'm teaching you to do tonight, you are going to see that the money starts to come in. You do the things that I'm teaching you to do tonight, you will find that people will start to answer the phone calls or return your messages. Because all of these things that go into building our business the way we want to, that it's actually not a result of this or this or this or this action. It's the sum total result of us doing energetically what we have to do. Okay, so when we are banging our head against the wall, we cannot figure out how to make something work. The very first thing I'm going to ask you to do, and again, I know I'm trying to smile. I'm going to try to say it with all the niceness I can muster up. The very first thing you got to do, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, you have got to verify that what you think you're doing, what you intend to do, what you set out to do is actually what you have done. Now, this is not one of those things where I am pointing at you and not talking about me. I got one finger pointing at you. I got three more pointing back at me. I am the queen of thinking I sent an email and then I come home five hours later and that thing is still unsent. Or maybe I hit send, but I didn't verify that it sent. And then I come back home and Google's like, this file's too big. Tell us how they need to have access to it. And then I'm like, man, I thought I sent that before I left for the day and was gone all that time. And so my reality did not match my intention in that moment. See how I talked about me and not you? If you are beating your head against the wall and you can't seem to make work what you want to make work, it could be that you have a path that is littered with intentions, good intentions of I'm going to do this and good intentions of I'm going to do that. And you're just so confident that you did what you set out to do. And if we look through your emails, and if we look through your phone logs, and if we look through the results, and if you like me, I lost all my tabs on my computer because it reset. And when I went back to open it, it said I had 270 tabs. Did I want to restore the window with 270 tabs? And I was like, I kind of don't want to open up a window with that many tabs. That's probably why my computer keeps crashing. But each one of those tabs represents something that I told somebody I would take care of and something that I need to get done. And the next step for Juneteenth and the next step for the Women's Wealth Summit. And there's a new, y'all, I got a new summit coming online. I can't wait to tell you about it. But it's not coming online till I finish my doctorate. So I've got 2 new summits coming out. One you've already seen if you've been on my YouTube channel. But neither one of them is coming out. But we found the venues for the first one, for this one, and we found a venue for the first one of that one, and I'm just so excited. Oh my goodness, y'all, it's going to be so great. It's going to be so great. But you know what's not great? What's not great is all the time that I spent getting excited about all this new stuff that's going on with that I haven't done with the old stuff that I'm supposed to be doing, which is why I had 200 and something tabs on my browser. Okay. I am not teaching you anything that I don't struggle with at least once a year, because I am just that person. And tell me if you've ever had this experience. Somebody drop it in the chat or send me a PM if you don't want to admit it. Okay. I set out to do task A, and task A requires B, C, and D. And so I say, okay, let me go get B done. Done. Let me move on to C. Oh, wait a second. In order to accomplish C, I got to do X, Y, and Z. And then I got to email Q, R, and S. And then I've got to talk to T, U, V. And then by the time I get all around the world doing all that so I could get step B done, somebody calls me or the alarm goes off and it is time to go pick up my son. And then I go do that. And of course, I can't just pick him up because, he needs his mama time. I pick him up. We go to the park. We play at the park. I come home. He goes to practice. I sit back at my computer at about 5 o'clock. And guess what? That main first task ain't never got done, because I got all around the world distracted by all the little pieces that needed to happen before A could happen, which is exactly why A hadn't happened in the last month, in the last year, in the last 2 years, in the last 4 years, in the last 5 years. I know I'm not the only one who has had something like that happen. And the bottom line is we think we're doing it, because in my mind, y'all, I don't know if it's because, look, this is my 50th year around the sun, and I already got a letter from AARP, and I was like, no, not yet, not yet. I was like, But maybe it's because I'm getting older. Maybe it's something with, just, I don't know, the frazzleness of being a mom. I don't know what it is, y'all. But something that used to be able to take me 2 seconds to just knock out, it takes like an hour now. And it's not just, oh, I got the email, send. It's, I got the email, let me check the calendar. Oh, I checked the calendar. Oh, I forgot I had to do that today. Let me, oh, I'll deal with that later. And when we do that, we leave all these open loops. And I've talked about these open loops before, but the bottom line is we think we did it. In my mind, I walk away from that email thinking I did it. Why do I think I did it? Because for the last, 30, 40 years that I've been doing things. I mean, I started my first little store on the playground in 6th grade, so I've been an entrepreneur for a long, long time, right? And in my little mind, when something comes across my desk, I do it. I decide not to do it. I schedule it. I give it to somebody else. Those are the 4 options that I execute. And we talked about that a couple weeks ago. Okay. If you weren't there for it, I encourage you to go back and find it before Facebook deletes it. Okay. So in my mind, I think it's done. And I've had a lot of clients, y'all. In your mind, you think it's done too. In your mind, you thought you hit send on that email. In your mind, you thought you were doing this and you were doing that. And then you find out that it didn't happen. And that's part of why we think we're doing all this effort. And we're really just in our head against the wall. Okay. And so what we have to do is we have to build in some time and capacity to actually make sure that we're following through. And so that's the first thing. When we feel like we can't get where we need to go, that's the first thing I want you to look at. Are you actually doing the things you intend to do? Because here's what we do a lot of times, okay? We judge somebody else by their behavior, by their results. But you know what we do for us? Oh, we judge ourselves by our intentions. Well, I meant to do that. Well, I thought I'd do that. Well, I thought I hit send. And the other person thought they hit send, and the other person intended to do that, and the other person intended to do this, and they never follow through. And you know what we don't do? We don't say, oh my goodness, you probably just forgot to hit send. We're like, can't work with them. I'm taking them off my list, So I just want you to consider that if things aren't working out, consider that before you take drastic actions or spend yet another $2,000 on somebody else's accountability program who's just going to tell you do the things that you need to do. Okay. The second thing I'm going to recommend, if you find that you are really trying to do everything that you know to get done, and you are doing all this action, and you're burning the candle at both ends, and you just feel like you're getting nowhere. The second thing I want you to do, I want you to verify that your actions truly are consistent. And not just consistent across your perspective, but consistent across all perspectives. Okay. So, and I'm going to give you a couple examples of this. I had a, I can't even call them a client. They did a free consult, and I was like, look, if you can't hear my voice, then I can't work with you, because they kept saying, oh, well, we just have a little credit card problem. You got credit cards that are worth double your salary. You got credit cards that's worth double your annual salary. That's not just a little problem. That's a big problem. And then they're like, oh, but we have really good credit. I'm like, your credit is 570. I don't know what world that's really good credit. And I'm a person that doesn't even like you to use debt. Okay. But I understand credit is important when you get mortgages. It's important to the interest rate that you're going to get. It's important in your insurance. If you are moving and you're going to get an apartment, a lot of apartments and a lot of landlords, it's important. You can still get a nice one with somebody who does manual review of your situation. But a lot of apartments and a lot of landlords, you're not even going to get your foot in the door unless your credit is a certain thing. So I get that credit's important, even though I'm not a big fan of using debt. Okay. But when you come at me with, well, it's a 570 and we're doing really well, I'm like, honey, you are not doing really well. And I felt so bad for the husband in that situation, because the husband was the one who brought them to me. And I could tell that he really wanted to work together to get their finances straightened out. But I was like, this isn't going to work. I can't work with you if you're not even going to acknowledge with me that you make, I forget what it was. I'm going to make up some numbers. You make $29,000 a year and you've got $60,000. And we're not even talking about student loans. Okay. Because at those levels, if that 60K was student loans, it'd be deferred. Okay. But we're talking about credit cards, and we're talking about multiple vehicles, and the vehicles, I was like, well, that's kind of reasonable because they don't know what they don't know. But I was just like, you got all of this stuff up on this JCPenney card and the Macy's card and whatever cards, and you're going to tell me everything's great and it's just a little no. And I was like, look, this is the reason why you all are in the mess that you're in, because you think these are just little problems, but this is a glaring problem for your future. And of course, they never came back around. I hope they found somebody else that was nice and sweet and kind. And I hope they eventually got out of debt and got their life pulled out together, right? But that wasn't going to work for me. Because her actions were not consistent. She kept saying, well, I do this and I do this. And I'm like, well, the numbers say you do that. Well, I do this and I do this. Well, the numbers say you do that. Now, if she at any other point had said, oh, well, yeah, I guess you're right, I hadn't seen that before. Ding, ding, ding. Now I can work with you. When she was like, I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. My dad was a financial planner. I know all about money. And I'm like, most financial planners look at, 22% interest that you're paying every month, and they call that a penalty. And they don't want their baby girls having that kind of debt. Anyway, so that's an example of somebody that's really not, they think their actions are consistent, but their actions weren't consistent, because every time that she would spend a month or two planning well, then she would spend like 3 or 4 just spending whatever. I'll give you an example from my life, and this is not financial, but it is in the sense of building something up. Okay. So I have my business and I have the ministry. Many of y'all will notice that for business, I dropped my daily thoughts and switched to a weekly affirmation. I found, aside from the month of travel where I thought I had it set up for April, where I thought I had it set up, but I didn't, to just go while I was gone. I just found that weekly was what I could consistently do until I can rehire a new assistant. Right. And so that's doing that. That's what I could do. I had to stop lying to myself that I was going to pull off this daily thoughts thing. Now, when I hire another assistant and I get him or her trained up, then we'll go back to the daily thoughts. But for now, we do what we can do. Okay. But my ministry that the Lord gave me, we used to do the daily scripture, and I would do the daily scripture as part of my son's go to school routine. So we'd get dressed and we'd eat and we would have a little bit of time because we try to keep him on the same wake up schedule that if I'm out of town, he has to wake up early to go to dad's office to ride the bus to school. But we don't want that to be a rare occurrence. So we just always wake him up at that time. And then if he and I have time to play before school, then he and I have time to play. Okay. So we stay consistent with his schedule. Well, what we were doing is we were doing that daily scripture as part of the morning routine. And whenever he didn't have school, we weren't doing it. And whenever we were out for a break, we weren't doing it. And I think it was one time after summer break, it was either summer break or it was Christmas break. It was a really long break. And we started it back up and someone's like, oh, it's so good to have you back. And in my mind, I'm like, well, we never left. Why are they saying that? But then they were like, well, you haven't posted one in a couple weeks. And in my mind, y'all, well, yeah, of course. I just posted one no, I posted one last school day. I hadn't posted one yesterday. I posted one last school day, last month, last year, if it was Christmas break, but I didn't publish one last week because we didn't have a morning routine. And so to me, my actions were consistent in one plane. My actions were consistent in the plane of morning routine. My actions were not consistent in the plane of outside third party looking at the ministry. And so a lot of times in our mind, we are consistent in the plane of our business that we see, but we are not being consistent in the plane of our business that others see. And John Maxwell has a very short quote that says, consistency compounds. And the more reliably you do the business activities that you need to do, the more that energy and that effort compounds to bring you the results that you want to have. So when we feel like we're beating our heads against the wall and we just can't seem to make anything happen and we're working so hard and nothing's working out, then I would encourage you to look into whether or not your actions really are consistent across all perspectives and all planes. All right. The third thing that I'm going to recommend we do in that kind of situation is to stop stressing about what we can't do and start focusing on doing the things that we can do. We got to stop stressing about the things that we can't do. And we've got to focus on doing the things we can do. So for example, if this circle, some of you have seen this example before, but I find that it's still a really good example. If this circle represents the things we can do. Okay. So if this circle, this big circle represents the things that we can do. Okay, this represents the things that we can do. A lot of times what we do is we focus on what someone else can do. And we might lament that, maybe we're not as good looking as they are. We probably are good looking enough to accomplish our goals, but they're amazing looking, right? We feel like we may not be as smarter as they are, we feel like we may not be as smart as they are, right? We may not have parents with connections, okay? Let's see, what else? If you want to drop it in the chat, you can if you're live. What else? What else do we sometimes look at somebody else and say, oh, they can do? Oh, well, they have a degree and we don't. I'm going to tell you right now, I have a couple degrees, but having degrees is not an indicator of entrepreneurial success. In fact, the research shows the higher level degrees, like the people with the PhD, they make way less money than the scrappy entrepreneur who knows how to energize themselves and work with people. Okay. So we might look at what somebody else can do. And we might be like, oh, well, I'm never going to get ahead. I'm nowhere near as good looking as she is. And I don't mean to minimize these concerns, okay? Because I better not give her name. When I was in I can't even say where it is, because as soon as I say where it is, everybody who is in that circle that I was in, they're going to know who I'm talking about. I was in a place with some people one time, and we went to an event. Oh, wow, this is such a vague story. We went to an event. Well, one of the ladies that came with us, I thought she was nice. I thought she was pretty. I didn't think anything of it, but then I've always been kind of a geeky, nerdy, physics geek kind of person. So I've never been a fashionista. I had no idea how gorgeous this woman was considered to be until the entire evening. Everything we did, whether it was from going out to dinner, whether it was going to get our tickets for the sporting event, whether it was at the sporting event, after the sporting event, trying to go to our cars, every 30 seconds, every 2 minutes, some man was coming up offering to buy her drinks, offering to buy her dinner, offering to buy her tickets, offering to do this and do it. And they were just falling over themselves to do this for her. And I looked to the person next to me and I was like, what is this? And she was like, oh, welcome to outings with so-and-so. This is just how it is. And I'm like, but what are they? What are they do? Because okay, there's a book series called What Southern Women Know. And one of them is What Southern Women Know About Flirting. And in there, the lady says, anyone who thinks that sex doesn't sell doesn't have enough sex appeal to sell or give away. And that comment hit me like a ton of bricks because I've never had a guy falling over myself. Okay. So when this happened and I didn't understand what was going on, that was the first thing that came to my mind is, oh, wow. She's got, I don't see it because she just looks normal to me. We had a great time. She was a normal person. She was a fun person. She had great energy. And to me, she just kind of looked like the girl next door. I didn't see whatever all these guys were seeing. Okay. But apparently, according to the other new friend that I had just made that night, that was a regular occurrence with her. And so sometimes people are more attractive than you. And yeah, those doors will open up more for them. Okay. Maybe that's true. Maybe some people are smarter than you. Now, like I said, when I started down this path, being super smart doesn't usually translate into having super wealth. Super wealthy people are very smart, but they're not just book smart, they're also people smart. And they know how to harness the power of the super smart experts who are super book smart, or who might be super lab smart, or who might be super detailed smart in this particular area. The wealthy person harnesses the power and the expertise of these people and applies it to the wealthy person's goals. Okay, so that doesn't mean you can't be wealthy if you're super smart, but it does mean that because so many people rely on the letters after their name to open up the doors of success, and they're not open to the experiences of others, that a lot of times super smart people miss out on the great wealth. But we're sitting around here feeling bad because we don't have all the letters after our name. Okay. We might be feeling bad because our parents don't have the connections somebody else's parents have. Somebody else's parents open all these doors for them, and you don't have parents that did that for you. Well, it just like the good-looking people have a little bit easier leg up in life, so do the people whose parents have connections. But guess what? At the end of the day, the parents can open the door. You still have to walk through. And guess what I have found out in my short lifetime? I have found out that most people are not willing to do whatever it is they need to do. And if you are willing to do what you need to do and you will stick with it, you will outlast everybody who had the connections, and you will outlast everybody who had the attractiveness. It doesn't mean that somebody's not going to ride their good looks well into their 50s or whatever, okay, until they stop looking so good or people stop caring, right? It doesn't mean that doesn't sometimes happen. But what happens more often is the person who got away in their 20s with everything handed to them because they look good, they start to get aged. They start to age a little bit. And in their 40s, they give up because, well, now the age doesn't work. It was never about the age. It was about how people felt around that person, and they weren't able to harness that energy as they aged. And so somebody like me and you, who's just kind of average looking, and we can make ourselves look kind of nice if we feel like it, we maintain our energy and learn how to build relationships, we can surpass the other person. Now, you notice I've spent all this time talking about the other person. I haven't spent any time talking about what we can do. You know why? Because most of us who are hitting our head against the wall, I'm doing all these things I can do, and nothing's working out. But look at her. She put one little video out there on TikTok, and now she's making $1 million. I know some of that's true, but most of that ain't true, y'all. Or if she's making $1 million, she's spending $790,000 to get there. Okay. So, these things can be advantages, and this person may have advantages, and this person may have skills that you don't have. But you know what else that person doesn't have? That person doesn't have the calling that you have. That person doesn't have the people that you were meant to reach. That person doesn't have the business that you were meant to do. See, you have your sphere of influence. I have my sphere of influence. But we're so busy looking at them that we don't do what we can do. And we honestly, if you stop and think about it, myself included, and I've been teaching this stuff for years, y'all, we do very little of what we can do. We do very little of what we can do. And we usually do all of the things that we feel are associated, or the things that are right in front of our face. But if the Lord reminds me, hey, you could do that, and I'm like, this is my comfort zone. That's my comfort zone. Let me write that on there, okay? If this is my comfort zone, yeah, it's got me bound. But you know what? It's like a dirty diaper. It's dirty, it's stinky, but it's warm and it's mine. And a lot of us are stuck in the stinky diapers of life because we refuse to learn how to potty train because it's outside of our comfort zone. But when we do take advantage of, when we do execute, when we do try to do the thing that's outside of our comfort zone, a curious thing happens in life. Let me make a little star up here, okay? If the star is the goal, okay? A curious thing happens in our life as we are moving from the goal. When we stop looking at how somebody else has these benefits in life that just put them closer to the goal. Some people just have benefits in life that put them naturally closer to the goal than you and I started out with, right? But when we stop focusing on them and we start focusing on us and what we can do, and when we're willing to break out of our comfort zone, when we're willing to break out of this comfort zone and go towards what we could do that we're not so comfortable with, now the next thing that happens in our life is we now expand the abilities of what we can do. And if we just keep expanding and expanding and expanding, and maybe we get off kilter a little bit, that's this one. We're expanding. Oh, we get distracted by this over here, and we chase after that for a little while, but we get back on track. And then the next thing you know, you will have reached your goal. Their life and their path has nothing to do with your success. Now, they might help you on your success. If they're mean girls or mean guys, they might hinder you on your success. You may have to learn how to work with them or work away from them. I don't know about all that. But what I'm saying is these people's benefits that they have in life has nothing to do with you getting outside your comfort zone and taking those next steps. And so when we talk about our 7-figure business building, as we continue to have these lessons throughout the year, I want to encourage you right now, try something you've never tried before. And if you have tried something before, but you haven't tried it the way I'm teaching you, which again is just a way, it's not necessarily the way, it's a way that works for me, and I believe it will work for you. But the only way to know if it will work for you is to try it that way, right? Virtual summits can be something that's outside of your comfort zone. But one of the reasons I recommend it to entry-level entrepreneurs is because you can put on a virtual summit without spending any money. Even in 2025, you can submit, you can create a virtual summit without spending any money, and you can test the concept and see if you can make money. Or if your goal isn't money, you can see if you can expand your influence. If your goal isn't influence, you can see if you can expand your credibility. Like, there's so many different things that you can do with a virtual summit, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Okay. And so if you're listening to me as part of the Ladies of Wealth podcast, I want to encourage you to be on Thursdays nights, or I want to, both. I'd like to encourage you to be with us live on Thursday nights, but I'd also encourage you to listen to the next podcast, because the next podcast is going to be how to actually make your first $1,000 with virtual summits.